Welcome back to the Your Illini Nation postseason special. So happy to be joined now by Illini Inquirer's Derek Piper. He's joined us all season on the pregame show. It has been a long, fun season, Derek, but now looking ahead to the postseason. Illinois coming off that win against Iowa. Good defensive performance, probably one of their best of the season. Perfect time for it seems like, as they go into win or go home territory.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that's what Brad Underwood has really been preaching here recently, is trying to get that defensive effort and engagement really amplified, because we know this team can score at a high clip. They're one of the top 5 offenses in the country. They got a bona fide big three, Terrence Shannon Jr., Coleman Hawkins, Marcus Damas. This offense can really rev their engines against anyone in the country, but defensively you got to be able to get stops, especially late in games. And you look at the way they were able to buckle down against the Hawkeyes to get a quad 1 win. That gives them a little bit of momentum. We'll see what they do at the Big Ten tournament, but I'm sure Brad just likes the idea they didn't play their best game as far as scoring goes, still won comfortably, got that quad 1, and hopefully if the defense pairs with the offense, this has a chance to be a high ceiling team and one that will be tough to knock out come tournament time.
Illinois has not lost back-to-back games all season, but all it takes is one next couple of weeks between the Big Ten tournament and NCAA tournament. Experience is going to be a big factor at this time of year. Just 2 guys on this team, Terrence Shannon Jr. and Quincy Guerrier, who have even been past this first weekend. Does that kind of experience matter at this time of year to you, Derek?
I think it's great to have guys that have been there before. When you have Texas Tech with Terrence and then obviously Syracuse for Quincy Guerrier. I also like the fact that Coleman Hawkins knows what it's like to be in a tournament game, to prepare for that. You understand just the bright lights on the national stage, and also, as Brad likes to say, the abruptness of the end. When you don't play very well, then all of a sudden your season's over. So Ty Rodgers is familiar with that. Luke Goody's familiar with that. I feel good about a team that collectively has been there before. Now Marcus Damas is about to make his debut in the big dance, and same thing with Justin Harmon. So I'm sure those guys will be excited and amplified. But when you're dealing with a team that's mostly of 22, 23, even Quincy's a 24-year-old, you like the fact that those guys won't have their pulse change too much, I think, as far as the moment and just what's at stake. But on that note, this is their last dance in college basketball, and it's their chance to go out on a high note.
Brad Underwood has a lot of sayings, but I think my favorite is that abruptness of the end, as he puts it. And Illinois knows that very well in the Big Ten tournament after these past 2 seasons, getting bounced in their very first game. We're going to go over the matchup, but for you, does that matter that they know that from experience these past 2 years, that it just takes 1 game and you're out of this Big Ten tournament? And do you think they're primed for maybe a deeper run than these past few seasons?
I think that they are. We'll see what the feeling is after they get out of Minneapolis. If it's a one and done there, then maybe you get back to the angst of – there's going to be angst. I mean, the fans are worried about this being another year where they don't advance to that second weekend. There's going to be a lot of roster turnover this season. When you think about Terrence Shannon and Coleman Hawkins being NBA guys, all the veterans that we just talked about that this team has at their disposal, this really should be the year for them to go on a run. So I think that this team, as far as their capabilities, it does go back to you've got some older guys. You got an offense that is really, really tough to stop. I think they're capable of more defensively than what they've shown on the whole. Like we mentioned, it was an encouraging performance to end the regular season of just the kind of the grit and especially rebounding. This team can really rebound the ball, have some grown men inside. So I like the way they're shaping up going into postseason play. But, of course, knowing that it can be a possession here, possession there, a missed rebound here, and just some mistakes that over the course of a game can really be the difference of advancing or getting sent home. And I do think that Brad's emphasis of that should have this team's attention. We'll see what that looks like starting this week in Minneapolis.
All right, we went over some of the bracketology with Brad Evans, but I want to know from you, Derek. Illinois solidly in the NCAA tournament on that 4 seed line. Is there a chance with some good performances in Minneapolis that moves up? Is there a chance that it can go down if they get bounced in that first game on Friday?
I think there's a chance that you have probably an outside shot at a 3 seed. You would have to have some things break your way. I think Duke is one squad that I really look at, someone that's similar to Illinois, playing in kind of a shallow ACC, not a lot of top-level teams, not a lot of NCAA tournament teams. So the real knock on Illinois is not having the marquee win. Duke has one against Baylor. If the Illini were able to get to Sunday and knock off Purdue, there's always the conversation of how much does that game matter, because the selection committee may already be pretty well set in stone what they want to do with the bracket that comes out. I remember Audisumu cutting down the nets literally when they won the Big Ten tournament in Indianapolis when that bracket came out. So, but on that note, if you beat Iowa or Ohio State, it's a quad 2 win. If you were to see Nebraska in particular in that semifinal, that would be a quad 1. And then you'd really like to see Purdue on Sunday as far as the magnitude of win that would be. And so I still think an outside shot at 3, but really in my mind the best thing about that Iowa win, I feel like the floor for the most part is probably a 4 seed, which pretty good spot to be in.
All right, before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's take a look at the Big Ten tournament bracket, Derek. And I want to get first your thoughts on Illinois' side of the bracket. Like I've said plenty of times, like people have pointed out, just one team that they have lost to all season on their side, number 11, Penn State. What do you make about their path to a possible Sunday championship game in the Big Ten tournament?
I think overall it's pretty favorable. Now, I do think that first matchup there, whether you're going to draw Ohio State or Iowa, you'll get a desperate team, a team with – that's a battle of Bubbleville right there. Yeah. When you got the Hawkeyes and Ohio State, 2 squads that are on the wrong side of the bubble, but chances to get into the tournament as this thing winds down if they can string along some wins. I think Iowa was a team that if they were able to beat the Illini in Iowa City, that probably would have been a win-and-in situation. Now they have to beat Ohio State, beat Illinois. But I do, as you see here, I like Illinois advancing against the Buckeyes. As far as Ohio State, Iowa, I think that Ohio State's defense has really buckled down since Chris Holtman's been fired. I think that got their attention, and Jake Dieleper's done a great job with that squad. But I do have Illinois moving on against Ohio State and then matching up against Indiana here in the semis.
Yeah, what do you make of the matchup then? You got Wisconsin and Indiana, 2 teams that would be seen as an upset making it to the semifinal round. But it seems like if you talk to anyone, the popular pick is going to be chalk in the final. Before we talk about that one, though, what makes you think Illinois has a good shot in these matchups, first against Ohio State and then possibly against Indiana in this one?
I think they draw Iowa, first of all. The fact of Terrence Shannon Jr. showed that he can't be stopped against the Hawkeyes. Just too physical, too good of a athletic presence for that Iowa defense, although I do have Ohio State in that one. And I think that's another situation where I just feel like Illinois can outgun them. I think they've got too much firepower offensively. The fact that they are starting to trend a little bit better just in terms of their effort defensively. And I think that the way that Quincy Guerrier has shown of late, I just like their form. And that was really the breakout game for Terrence Shannon in Columbus when they played their lone matchup of this season. Illinois put up nearly 90 points, and I think he can have another big night along with Marcus Domask against the Buckeyes.
All right, let's move on to the championship now. Just like Brad and just like a lot of people, you got Illinois and Purdue in that final, but is 3rd time's the charm for the Illini?
I think it could be, but I'm picking the Boilermakers. I just think they're that much of a machine. I think that Zach Edey is an extremely tough matchup. We saw the guard play that Purdue has really had this year is different than last season. Braden Smith is an entirely different presence with his confidence, with his aggressiveness, the way he was able to make shots late against the Illini. I'm sure Illinois would be chomping at the bit to get that shot at the Boilers once again, but I do have that matchup and them getting their chance, but I'll roll with Purdue, the team that's the top overall seed right now projected in the NCAA tournament, and I think they get it done in Minneapolis.
You're not going to have a lot of Illini fans very happy with you for that pick.
That's okay. I get used to that.
All right, read his stuff on IlliniInquirer.com. Listen to their podcast as well. Derek, thanks so much for coming in and joining us.
Absolutely.